disrespected at the very event he funded. The CEO didn't get angry. He simply stood up and made the entire tech world turn their heads. This is a story you can't miss. The sun had just begun to rise over Irvine, California, when Elijah Turner stepped out of a sleek black Cadillac Escalade, right in front of the Grand Meridian Hotel, the venue for the spring's largest tech summit. The soft morning light caught the glint of his stainless steel watch, and his navy Italian-tailored suit hugged his tall frame perfectly. His polished brown leather shoes, shined the night before, completed the look. He was the image of confidence and purpose, a man who knew exactly who he was and why he was here. But the valet nearby didn't move an inch. Instead of approaching to take the keys, the young man pretended to glance at his phone, then casually called out to a colleague behind him. "Yo, can you grab this one?" he said, his eyes sweeping past Elijah like he wasn't even there. Elijah didn't say a word. He simply gave a slight nod and drove the car into the garage himself. When he returned and stepped through the glass doors into the main lobby, the receptionist's initial smile vanished the moment she looked up. "Can I help you with something?" she asked without meeting his eyes. "I'm here for the Summits and Conference. My name is Elijah Turner. My company has the Pacific Grand Meeting Room reserved." She looked up briefly, scanned his face, and her brows drew together. "Are you with logistics? Or maybe a vendor?" Elijah smiled, calm, not forced. "I'm the CEO of Arcadia Systems, and the keynote speaker for this morning's opening session." She blinked, a flicker of discomfort crossing her face, but her lips remained in a flat, professional line. "I'm sorry, we're still preparing the event space. You'll need to wait in the lobby." The words didn't anger Elijah. They simply cooled something in him, not from the air conditioning, but from something more familiar, something invisible, prejudice. He stepped back outside to the curb, standing tall under the early light, eyes gazing beyond the passing traffic. It was 8:09 a.m. He had 51 minutes left, not just to deliver a speech, but to change the way people saw someone like him in this space. Elijah Turner stood still outside the Grand Meridian, hands in his pockets, watching the stream of people hurrying into the lobby. Most of them, white men in crisp suits, were met with warm smiles, firm handshakes, and familiar nods from hotel security. No one asked him what they were doing there. No one told him to wait outside. His phone buzzed. On screen, a familiar name, Carmen Reyes, the conference coordinator. "Elijah, are you here? People are asking where you are." "I'm standing right outside the door," he replied evenly. "Was asked to wait out here." Silence. "Are you serious?" Never been clearer. He ended the call before she could say anything more. Standing there, Elijah felt like he'd been transported back to 2006. 19 years old, walking into his very first interview, wearing a borrowed shirt from his father, only to be asked if he was there to deliver pizza. Back then, he had walked out in silence, and no one even noticed. But today was different, at least on paper. He was the one who had signed off on a $2 million contract to host this conference, the one who had brought 60 investors to this event, the name on every official document. And still, he was told to wait in the lobby because no one had ever imagined that someone like him could be the one in charge. It wasn't shock that kept Elijah still. It was recognition, that painfully familiar feeling, one he had learned not to let scratch the surface. What filled his mind wasn't retaliation. It was strategy, because what they didn't realize was that they weren't just late in welcoming an important guest. They were failing to properly acknowledge the man who owned the entire room. When Elijah re-entered the lobby, his stride steady and unshaken. This time, no one stopped him, but the receptionist's gaze hadn't changed. Still skeptical, still guarded. She looked up just as Elijah pulled out his phone and spoke into his Bluetooth headset, his voice crisp and deliberate. "Jenna, begin executing the Hayes protocol. Call A/V and have all gear move within 30 minutes. Oh, and tell the catering team, we want the upgraded menu. No cost cutting. I'm not playing average today." The receptionist furrowed her brows, tilting her head slightly, as if trying to figure out whether she was listening to a guest or the director of a major film about to shoot its climax. Just as he ended the call, "Jenna, Elijah's assistant, stepped off the elevator with swift purpose, tablet in one hand, artisan coffee in the other, the exact kind Elijah preferred, bold, unsweetened, precisely 135 degrees Fahrenheit. "Boss," she said without missing a beat, "good news. Hayes will be ready in under an hour. Bad news, they still haven't realized their mistake." Elijah took the coffee, sipped, and gave a quiet, knowing smile, the kind that said, "I've seen this before, and I know exactly what happens next." "That's fine," he said calmly. "They don't need to realize it. They just need to see it." On the other side of the lobby, one of the event's biggest investors, Gregory Tanaka from Horizon Ventures, had just arrived. He wore a gray suit and carried a sleek black leather briefcase. "Elijah," Gregory called out, shaking his hand firmly. "Welcome back. I heard you're speaking today." Elijah smiled. "Not here." Gregory raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Change of venue. Due to the special welcome here." Gregory glanced quickly at the reception desk, then let out a dry laugh. "Oh, then I guess I just witnessed a masterclass in flipping the script." Elijah raised his coffee cup, as if to toast from afar. "The game's just getting started." Inside a small VIP room next to the Pacific Grand Ballroom, where soft light filtered through linen curtains, Elijah sat at a walnut table, his laptop open but untouched. He didn't need slides to prove his worth. Every word, every action since morning had already been the most valuable keynote anyone could offer. His phone buzzed gently. It was Tammy, the head of operations, whose crisis response was faster than the AI in their own system. Hayes had confirmed the Crystal Ballroom, the breakout rooms, and all 40 premium suites. They even threw in complimentary British-style afternoon tea for all attendees, she reported, her pride barely concealed. Elijah nodded, a subtle smile playing on his lips. "Perfect. Have our comms team prepare an internal update. Emphasize flexibility, respect, and professional adaptability. No need to name the original hotel. Those who need to know will." Outside, Jenna moved like conductor in the middle of a symphony orchestra. She nodded at each guest group, exchanging looks and hushed words filled with intention. "Everyone, just a small change in this morning's schedule. We're moving to a new location. Don't worry, it's close by. And trust me, it's a serious upgrade." Guests looked at one another, but no one protested. In fact, some were even excited, like they'd just been invited to a secret party. One of them laughed. "Pretty sure the CEO just gave our supply chain a live fire drill." The scene in the hotel lobby looked like a slow-motion version of a well-orchestrated retreat. One by one, investors, tech leaders, and financial advisors exited the hotel as if they had only casually stopped by. The front desk staff watched the scene unfold, confused and unsure of what was happening. A few moments later, the hotel manager rushed in, his face pale as he saw conference name tags being removed and moving crews packing up equipment. Elijah, stepping out of the VIP room, walked past the manager. No harsh words, no cold stare, just a calm nod that seemed to freeze the air. "And you are?" the manager asked hesitantly. Elijah paused. Gently, without anger, he replied, "I'm the person who chose this hotel to host the future of the tech industry, but it seems you chose not to see me." Then he kept walking. Every step he took was a message without words. It took just 13 minutes for the fleet of luxury SUVs to transport the entire guest list from the old hotel to the new venue, the Hayes. There were no signs, no banners, but the moment they stepped into Grand Atria with its 25-foot glass ceiling and the soft notes of a Steinway piano drifting through the air, played live by an improvising musician, the investors instinctively nodded in approval. "Now this is a level we were expecting," a CFO from Seattle whispered to a colleague. The atmosphere at Hayes wasn't just different. It elevated the entire experience. The reception staff knew each guest by name, their titles, their roles. They were welcomed not as bookings, but as collaborators. And Elijah, he didn't need to make a speech. His presence alone at the entrance, calm smile, steady handshake, was enough to make it clear. This was an impulsive move. It was a strategy. "Welcome to the event I created. Elijah said quietly to a young startup founder attending for the first time, not the one someone else permitted. Within 20 minutes, new nameplates have been printed, laptops synced to the display screens, Bluetooth speakers replaced the original AV setup, and trays of warm croissants along with top-tier espresso were lined up and ready. Tammy, the logistics queen of Arcadia Systems, passed by Elijah, raising her coffee cup toward him. "We're making history here, boss." Elijah raised an eyebrow slightly. "Don't need history. Just need them to remember the right name." Meanwhile, back at the original hotel, a group of conference staff still stood around a tray of untouched pastries, unsure what to do. The projector screen still displayed the event's name, as if they were still waiting for something to happen. But something had already happened. They were just permanently late to it. After the opening session at the Hayes, when the room echoed with applause and quiet excitement, Elijah Turner slipped away toward the operations area. He didn't exit the stage with prideful flourish, but with a calm so steady it made others wonder, how many times has this man done something like this before? Inside the speaker's lounge, soft light bounced gently off the glass walls. Elijah sat down on a leather chair, took off his tailored blazer, revealing palms marked by calluses. Not the kind earned behind a desk, but from years of lifting stock boxes, stacking shelves, and coding line by line in a cramped 400-square-foot Oakland apartment. Jenna entered with 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Elijah and took the seat beside him. "You know," Jenna began after a long pause, "I thought after what happened this morning, you'd slam the table, call your lawyer, go live and give some epic angry speech." Elijah chuckled softly and took a sip. "When I was 19, he began, eyes still fixed on a window. I went to my very first job interview. Clean resume in hand, shirt pressed, tie on. The receptionist looked me up and down and asked, 'You here to deliver pizza?'" Jenna snorted at the absurdity, but Elijah only smiled quietly. "I didn't say anything. Sat there for 2 hours. Then left. They'd forgotten I had an appointment." He turned toward Jenna, his eyes carrying the weight a lesson life had taught him more than once. "You ask why I'm not angry? Because I learned something. If you have to shout to be seen, you're not truly seen. But if you're silent at the right moment, sometimes the entire room will turn its head on its own." Jenna nodded slowly. He didn't say anything more, but in his eyes was a kind of quiet reverence. Outside the room, the soft hum of conversation, gentle music, and the clinking of espresso cups continued. But now, everything revolved around one truth. Elijah wasn't just the host of the conference. He was the man rewriting the rules, not with fury, but with composure. The summit at the Hayes was in full swing. Inside the nearly 3,000-square-foot Crystal Hall, the spotlight lit the stage where Elijah was set to lead the next session, the post-AI innovation wave. But just as the room settled into a quiet hush, a sharp phone ringtone sliced through the air. Then another, and then loud laughter from the far left table. A group of 3 men, clearly new partners and from Boston, were texting and chuckling like they were at a bar, not a premier tech conference. The room stirred. Some people turned their heads. Others sighed and shook theirs. Jalen raised an eyebrow at Elijah, silently asking if they should cut the lights and escort them out. But Elijah didn't raise his voice. He didn't bang the table. He simply walked to the podium, calm and unshaken. He leaned in, adjusted the mic, and began to speak, his voice low and steady. "There's a story I've carried since I was a kid. My father once told me, if you walk into a room and have to yell to be heard, you're in the wrong room." The hall went still. Elijah continued, his eyes on the disruptive trio. "But if all it takes is for you to stand still, look forward, and the room silences itself, then you know you're exactly where you belong." Applause broke out. Not polite, not performative, but the kind that rises from shared recognition. The 3 men looked uncomfortable. Phones disappeared into pockets. The laughter stopped cold. One of them whispered, "Sorry, sir." Elijah gave a small nod and smiled. "Let's start again. And this time, I'd like everyone here to listen, not just with your ears, but with your respect." From that moment forward, not a single voice interrupted. Elijah didn't need to raise his tone to command the room. He only needed to be present. And with that kind of presence, his keynote wasn't just a lecture on AI. It became a living lesson in how to carry dignity through a world that sometimes forgets what it looks like. Just a few hours after the conference of the Haze wrapped up, the West Coast tech social media sphere started to shift. Not with loud drama, but through short, quietly powerful clips captured by attendees. One showed Elijah Turner calmly walking out of the lobby of the former hotel venue, his expression composed, with a small line of text overlaying the screen. He didn't yell. He just left. Within 24 hours, the video landed on LinkedIn and surpassed 300,000 views. A well-known tech influencer posted, "I don't know who needs to hear this today, but you don't have to break the table to prove you deserve a seat. Learn from Elijah Turner." The comments section lit up. Exactly. I walked into a CEO boardroom once and got mistaken for delivery guy. Leadership isn't about the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the one everyone listens to when you say nothing at all. A hiring director from a top Seattle-based tech company added, "We're rethinking our end-of-year summit venue. Thanks for the reminder. Where you host an event is also a statement of your values." Meanwhile, a group of business students at UCLA edited the viral clip into a dramatic keynote presentation titled "Authority Doesn't Come from Volume." Their professor teared up. The whole class stood to applaud. Back at the original hotel, where it all started, the PR director was frantically pacing after receiving emails from 3 major clients, all with the same message. "We are reevaluating future partnerships. Please cancel our recurring bookings." In the customer service wing, one employee chuckled as she scrolled through a post tagging the hotel. "I once walked in here wearing a tailored suit, booked a suite. Reception asked if I needed a taxi for my Uber Eats shift. Only difference is, I wasn't Elijah. I just smiled. Now I wish I had walked out too." And Elijah? He sat at a quiet cafe on a tree-lined street corner with Jenna, sipping espresso while she held up her phone. "Do you want me to respond to press?" she asked, eyes sparkling with mischief. TechCrunch emailed, "Forbes wants an exclusive." Elijah smirked. "No need. Let them tell the story how they want, as long as they understand the most important part." Jenna grinned. "Which part?" Elijah leaned back, gaze steady on the horizon. "That not everyone who walks out of a room loses. Sometimes it's the only way to win without ever raising a fist." And in that gentle silence, a quiet revolution was already rippling, spreading from hotel hallways to hushed emails in power-laden boardrooms. That day, after every meeting had wrapped, after Elijah's keynote had sparked something deep in everyone present, he returned to the office, walking slowly down a hallway bathed in soft amber light. He didn't need loud greetings, applause, or plaques of recognition. He only needed one thing: space to reflect. In a nearby conference room, a few younger team members were still deep in animated discussion. One of them, Malik, a new intern from Stanford, stepped out and cautiously knocked on Elijah's office door. "Do you have a minute, Mr. Elijah?" His voice was careful, but his eyes glowed with genuine admiration. Elijah nodded and gestured for him to sit. Malik placed his notebook on the table, but didn't open it. "I just wanted to thank you for today." Elijah tilted his head slightly. "Thank me for what?" "For not reacting the way people expected. I used to think that when you're treated unfairly, you only have 2 options: stay quiet or get angry. But today, you showed me there's another way. A quiet way, but powerful." Elijah leaned back in his chair, his gaze thoughtful. "You know, Malik, I haven't always handled things the way I did today," he said slowly. "I've lost my temper before. I've shouted for justice. But over time, I realized something more important. It's not what people think of you that matters most. It's what you manage to keep whole inside yourself." Malik nodded, taking in every word as if each sentence was a stone being carefully placed into the foundation of how he'd think going forward. Elijah continued, "You'll find yourself in situations where others won't see you for who you really are, and you can't make them see. But you can choose how you walk away from the situation, from the room, with your head held high and your dignity intact. And that choice will echo further than any argument ever could." Malik exhaled softly, part agreement, part release, like something long held inside had finally found its way out. "Thank you," he said quietly. "No need for thanks," Elijah replied with a calm smile. "Just remember." Evening settled over Irvine, California, the sun sliding past the glass panels of the Arcadia Systems building, casting gold across its edges. Elijah Turner stood alone at the window of the 16th floor, a coffee cup cooling in his hand, untouched for who knows how long. The background buzz of keyboard clicks and distant phone calls faded into a quiet hush, leaving him with nothing but silence and the weight of everything that had unfolded in the past week. It wasn't about being turned away in a hotel lobby. It wasn't about not being recognized. It was about how an entire system could so casually dismiss a human being based solely on a passing glance. But Elijah didn't choose to fight it with noise. He chose action, quiet, deliberate, and beyond explanation. When you lead an organization, you're not just making decisions. You're modeling what strength looks like. Elijah understood that had he lost his temper, shouted down the front desk clerk, he might have forced an apology, but that wouldn't have taught anyone anything. Choosing instead to walk away, with 60 investors following behind him in the calm control of a man who knows his worth, taught a lesson no outburst ever could. No one teaches you how to master silence. But Elijah did just that, not to prove anything, but to protect the one thing that mattered most, his dignity. On his desk sat a small card, neatly placed, from a conference attendee. It bore just 4 handwritten words. "You didn't flinch. Thank you." Elijah turned the card over in his hand and smiled quietly. Not everyone needs to shout to be heard. Sometimes the right silence, paired with the right action, is what shifts an entire system. And that was Elijah's legacy. Not in the applause, but in the way others walked into rooms afterward, heads held higher, thanks to the quiet light he left behind. This world may look at you and not really see you. It may only see assumptions, doubts, and a default belief that you don't belong. But as Elijah Turner showed us, you don't need to raise your voice to be recognized. You just need to stand steady, protect your dignity, and let your actions do the speaking. Because the loudest power isn't always found in reaction. Sometimes true strength is calm. Sometimes it's quiet. So if someone ever makes you feel small, remember this. You don't need permission to be respected. You only need to show up and own your space. If this story speaks to you, share it. And always remember, the right silence, held with courage, is the loudest voice there is.